background is in IT and in secure marking and identification of products. You've been working in that space very deeply for many years. You're out in Silicon Valley, which is really a hub for a lot of IT innovation. And you have personally done a lot of coding and a lot of engineering work around blockchains and blockchain for supply chain. Can I ask you to just take a step back and explain the concept of a blockchain, how that's relevant for supply chains, and how that would work to really allow us to manage supply and demand in this high-speed, decentralized environment that we're facing around COVID-19 response?
Absolutely. So let's start off with the simplest version of what a blockchain can be to set the stage for how it is going to be so effective in a supply chain environment and why it would work very well in this instance. So if you have a ledger of transactions, and let's imagine your checkbook ledger that you use if you write a physical check. I know there's a lot of folks out there who may not ever have written a check, but if you kept track of every check that you ever wrote in a ledger, and you wrote down why you wrote the check, you wrote down the amount the check was for, and then you added the total of that check to the previous check balance that said, this is how much money I have left in my account. So you're keeping a record of this, of every check that you've written, every transaction that occurs in your bank account. You're writing that down in the book, and you're doing the mathematical calculation, and you're saving the result in the ledger. Now let's imagine that every time you wrote a check, you sent a copy of that ledger to every one of your friends to say, keep a record of this, hold it for me. I want to make sure that you have the same information as I do. Every time I write a check, I want to make sure that you have a copy of it, you have a record of that information, and that no one has gone back and changed a previous entry that I've written in my ledger. Now, obviously, if I go back in my written ledger and I change the value of a check, the mathematical calculation of my running total is no longer going to be correct. And it's going to be incorrect on my ledger, but it may not match every other version that I sent to all of my friends. So all of my friends are going to say, when I send them a result with an incorrect total, they're going to say, that's not correct. Go back and do your math again. All right. That's basically what a distributed ledger in a blockchain does automatically every day in an encrypted way. When you create a transaction on the blockchain actually sends that transaction information to multiple other participants in the blockchain, and they all have to agree that your math is correct and that you haven't altered something further back down the line, changing a transaction. So that's the concept of a blockchain ledger, and a way of creating immutable records of transactions that have occurred. It's very, very good in supply chain to say, you know, I shipped X amount of units to somebody on this particular date, and they validated that they received them. A great way of recording transactions in a particular ledger. So how does this apply with what Daniel and I were talking about with 3D printing and the distributed supply chain and producing products in different environments? Well, it turns out that when you want to connect somebody to a blockchain environment, it's very easy to add a new participant and a new facility using a blockchain node. A new factory pops up, they can actually download the blockchain ledger information and start participating in creating transactions on the blockchain. And because that deployment of a new node is actually almost automatic and very, very simple to do, it's very, very easy to add people to a blockchain network, and very, very easy for people to participate in recording what they have produced on that blockchain, what they shipped, when they shipped it, where they shipped it to. So creating this ledger of transactions from many, many, many distributed participants is something that blockchain is very well suited to.